Hi everyone, welcome to our online program today as we get to understand each other's faith a little bit more. We started a couple of months ago with a visit to Covenant Evangelical Church, and today we're very honored to be hosted by Masjid Yusof Ishak Mosque here in Yishun, and for us to have a better understanding of Islam as well as the wonderful architecture that you see behind me, an example of Singaporean Muslim architecture. So I hope you will join us, and if you have some questions, we have a dialogue later on, please feel free to ask us and we'll try to answer them. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to be here. Hello! Good to see both of you.
Hi,
wonderful to see you.
Hello.
Wonderful.
Hi.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm so happy to see both of you.
Yes.
And thank you for the very warm welcome to the mosque today. It's perhaps something you can share with us.
Sure, so much. Thank you so much for the time coming down here and then wanting to know more about the mosque and also Islam. So what can I share with you about the mosque itself? So this mosque is actually the 70th mosque in Singapore. So at the same time, it is also the latest mosque in Singapore.
Okay.
So we actually officially starts operating 14th of April 2017. So and also this is also the 26th mosque that was funded by the Muslim community through the mosque building and also Mendaki Fund.
Okay.
So this is the 26th mosque that actually it's being funded by our Muslim community themselves. So and also this mosque is named after our first president of Indonesia, and that is definitely because of to honor his contributions towards the community during his time.
That's wonderful.
So I'm going to show you one more special place. We call it we only have this in this mosque.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is we call Orchid Sanctuary, and of all the mosques in Singapore, this is the only mosque that have Orchid Sanctuary. We also have an orchid named after the mosque. We call it Dendrobium Masjid Yusof Ishak.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a very special place, and I would like also to introduce you. This is our volunteer, Madam Lucy. Yeah.
Hey, Lucy.
So Madam
Good to
Lucy
see
have
you.
been with us, helping us maintaining the garden for quite a few years since the opening of the mosque. She has been joining our activities and all. Yeah, so this is Madam Lucy. Thank you so much, Madam Lucy, for
Thank
coming.
you so much. A wonderful example of interfaith cooperation as well. And it's a really, really well maintained sanctuary. Thank you so much.
We all feel together.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madam Lucy.
Thank
okay,
you.
so another place. This is the Orchid Sanctuary that I mentioned to you, and because the reason why we have this Orchid Sanctuary is because that our late president, Mr. Yusof Ishak, and also his wife, actually love orchids. Yeah, they both of them love orchids, so that's why we dedicate this place filled with orchids just to commemorate his love for interest and with orchids. And also, if you can see, Mr. Mayor, at the top of there's an inscription of the verses of Quran that mention actually God actually has created men and women from different tribe and nations for us to know each other. Well, if I were to relate the inscription with all the orchids, I think it's quite similar, common. Because of the orchids of different characters, right? Same like us in Singapore.
Yes.
Yeah, we have different characters, different religion, different tribes, and also different ethnicity. But we managed to live alongside each other harmoniously together.
Indeed.
Yeah, just like the orchids, sharing the same soil. Now we are standing on the same ground. We are breathing the same air. We are sharing the same clouds, roof. So the same goes to the orchids, many colors, but managed to live harmoniously. Madam Lucy, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Look at how effective. Yeah. So I think this is just nice. The explanation of the orchids and also the one that being placed on the.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Imagine if the garden was just made up of one type of orchid.
True.
It would be nice, but
Correct.
it wouldn't have been as nice as it is now. The vibrancy of the
definitely.
color.
That's what I'm trying to say. Usually.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
summarizing.
Thank you. But in terms of the architecture of this mosque, it's very different from many of the other mosques that we see in Singapore.
Yeah, it's true also. So this is considered as quite a modern mosque. If you can notice, there's a crescent on top of the mosque that is actually depicts we call it as a Muslim symbol, but actually not really, because this is actually dated back to the Ottoman Empire last time. So the last time when the Ottoman Empire actually they have during the Constantinople conquering, the leader at that time actually he actually this is according to the legend lah. The leader at that time actually dreamed of the moon and the crescent. So he thought that this is a good omen to be implemented in the nation. So that is why when the Islam at that time widespread, so it goes along with the symbol of the crescent at the same time. And also another feature that I want to share with you is the dome, the specific thing of the dome. So normally when we see a picture image on Google, for example, we see Mecca or Medina, the mosque will have a dome. So why in this Singapore, particularly in this mosque, doesn't have that? So because basically that is the culture of the Arab. The Arab, when they build a mosque, it has to be a dome. Not sure why, but it has to be a dome. So we don't really implement or apply that culture, but instead we are building our own culture, but still remains the crescent as a symbol of Islam.
It looks familiar to me because I live in the east of Singapore, and then you look at Masjid Sigla, Kampung Sigla, also very similar layout, very incorporates the culture of our Malay community in Singapore.
Especially,
that's wonderful.
And also, if you can see the design, if I may add, it's actually like you said, the culture. It's actually designed. It's a combination of the Islamic signs or Islamic values and also the Nusantara architecture. So you can see there's a lot of brownish, woody type. So it is just to replicate the kampong style of but in the modern context.
That's wonderful. It brings together two very important cultures.
Definitely.
Like the religious identity and our cultural identity.
True.
That's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we have seen the outer of the mosque. Now let me bring you to the inside the mosque to look further.
Thank
you.
Come on.
Thank you, Madam Lucy.
Thank you. Thanks, Auntie Lucy.
Thank you so much. Sure, okay.
Come along.
Okay, please. Okay, so this is the point where we have to remove our shoes.
Sure.
Yeah. You can see a lot of shoes. So the reason why we remove our shoes, just like our house home, definitely we need to remove. They're just to maintain the place clean. Because the place that we are walking right now, if you can see the patterns, the tiles, there's different colors. This is actually an indication for how a person or a congregation should stand. Like for example, it is here, so everyone should line up here. So that's why there's a difference in tile, so to indicate that. And this place also can be converted into a praying space. So that's why it has to be maintained, clean. It has to be cleaned every time, so that people can also use for prayer. Okay, Maya. Now we are on the 4th floor. We are gonna go on a tour at the 4th floor. But before that, I think there's someone on the.
There was a question on Facebook from our audience. I mean, thank you very much again for hosting us on this visit.
No problem.
So the question came about and said, is the mosque open for others to visit?
Oh yes. Yes, for those who ask, thank you so much for the questions. Yes, the mosque is open for visit. Actually pre-COVID, before COVID, we have hosted many visitors, even from Northwest CDC before. Yeah, a few times, and a few from community centers. We do open for Muslim and also those who are not Muslims.
Okay.
So yeah, we are really open for visit. Also a guided tour of our mosque actually, but yeah, during COVID time we have to restrict. All the restrictions need to be stopped, and then hopefully years to come, hopefully we can do the visiting again.
We all pray that COVID will end soon.
Hopefully. So what I would like to introduce you to my friend Ustaz Alawi. He will be explaining more on the RLA. So Ustaz Alawi, can you please bring me?
Hi, Maya.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Maya, for gracing our mosque. So right now we have already come to this part of the mosque where it is called the Rla Hallway and also the Rla office. So what Rla basically means is Rahmatan lil Alamin, which is in Arabic. So what it means is it is been taken from this verse from the Quran, which means we have not sent you, O Prophet Muhammad, except as a blessing to all of creation. So what this organization does is actually to radiate blessings from the Muslim community to the community of the world, regardless of their race and also their religion. Right? So this particular organization, right, there are several things that they do. Primarily, the first one over here, you can see that they are in the business of spreading culture of care and compassion. And as you know, a lot of religions, right, including Christianity, Buddhism, we all fight for the same thing, which is called compassion. And these are some of the things that they have done before. And the second one, which is what they are known for, is to really provide humanitarian relief all around the world. Yeah. So, like, you know, we've had like the Aceh, you know, the humanitarian relief, right? And then and several other examples over here. And last but not least is the fact that the Rla Foundation, they always want to work towards inspire the youth. And what they do really near is that they provide grants for youth organizations. And you can see over here they have helped or they have partnered with a lot of organizations like Manjula, Project Plus 62 and so on and so forth, right?
Wonderful.
So these are some of the things that they are known for. And they have really worked all around the world, and these are the places and destinations that they have been to. And this is all about Rla Foundation.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So apart from housing this office over here, we also house little kids, right? Little kids. But these are not from the kindergarten level. They are what we call the Alive class. So a live class basically means the weekend religious class. So as you know, these kids, when they go to class, you know, the normal day class, on their weekends, they will come here. They will come here and learn religious studies.
Wonderful.
So why not we give them a knock and say hi to them? Is it okay?
Hello everyone, sorry to disturb you. I hope you are enjoying your classes. Wonderful, and thank you very much for
Say bye-bye.
Wish you all the best. Stay healthy.
Bye who?
Thank you everyone. Take care. Thank you. 谢谢. Terima kasih.
Alright. Such a long welcome from all of. Okay, let's head over to the other part of the mosque for us to learn more about Islam a bit. Right? Okay, so as you know, Maya, we are in the 4th floor. Okay, we specifically select this floor so that we can see some of the main designs of the inner part of the mosque. Okay, let's head over to this place. Okay, so right now this is what we call the carpeted area. Okay, in Arabic we call it i'tikaf. It is a place where congregants will come and just in a COVID situation, they need to be in the boxes that you will see later on. And this is where they go to meditate, to pray, to worship God. Yeah. So if you were to look up here, right, you can see that there are glass panels. So these glass panels are what we call Islamic geometry. Okay, and as you can see, it's a bit colorful. There's green, there's yellow, there's red. So all this is to represent the greenery, the kampung spirit, which just now I believe Ustaz Fatah has touched about. And just to add, you can see also there's a lot of woodwork going on. And if you look upwards again, you would notice there's no dome.
Yes.
There's no dome, right? So what we have is just the normal atap or the normal rooftop. So why we specifically chose a rooftop instead of dome? Because a dome, it serves an acoustic purpose to it. But we don't have that such dome here because we want to replicate the Minangkabau style of architecture. And as probably what you have, you might know, our late president, Yusuf Izzak, was from a Minangkabau origin.
Wonderful.
So we wanted to like accentuate that further. Okay, and then if you were to look over here, okay, we have this one big inscription in what we call Arabic calligraphy. Arabic calligraphy. So it is not our normal daily handwriting in Arabic. It's rather an artwork, right? So this calligraphy is being written in a script called the Thuluth script. Thuluth script. And it tells or it mentions about the importance of us racing or competing in doing goodness. Particularly a verse over here is been mentioned, Fastabiqul khairat, which means compete in the way of God in achieving goodness. So symbolically, it's like for us, for those who would understand, for us, those who would pray downstairs, if they look here, look upwards, they will be reminded of why they are here. Right? We are doing it for God, and we want to compete everything in goodness, in sincerity for God.
Wonderful.
Right? So that's a bit about the inscription. And then if you notice over here, there's a big structure over here. A lot of woodwork as well. This is what we call the pulpit. That's where the imam or the leader of the prayer would stand and give their sermon. Every Friday, weekly. So as you know, Muslim men, we are obligated to come to the mosque to pray every Friday. But this is of course on top of the 5 daily prayers that we do every day. Right? So this is the pulpit, and if you notice, there's some kind of designs over there. Would you be so kind to guess what are the designs that's been used over there?
They look something similar to what we saw downstairs, orchids.
Orchids. So as you know, Encik Yusuf Izzak and his wife, Puan Nur Asia, are orchids. What do you call enthusiasts? Yeah. So that's why we took the opportunity to also inscribe those things over there.
Wonderful.
And then right next to it, we can see that there's this like concave area, right? Okay, this is a feature called mihrab in Arabic. Okay, so what mihrab means, it is a place for someone to pray actually, but the practical use of it is essentially to bounce back the voice of the leader of the prayer. Of course, this is something or it's a feature that would be more relevant back then. Right now we have the microphones. So it's still a feature that we make it stay over there.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And then of course we have the prayer hall. This is where we pray. As you see, there are a lot of boxes. That's where we need to stand social distancing. Yeah. And prayer is in Islam is one of the most essential things that a Muslim needs to do. And it is regarded as the most important ritual in the religion of Islam. And that's the reason why we try to retain the prayer as much as possible. Although in COVID times, we try to retain prayer in this mosque. Okay.
It's important.
All right. I think that is all that we can talk about in this particular
I think there's
area.
a question that has come in. It says, how about churches? I think this question is for me. Do we have the dome feature in churches? I think in all religious architecture, it's about focusing on the divine.
That's right.
So how we design, how we relate to the space can make a difference. So yes, churches do have domes. Some churches, in particular what we call basilica style church,
That's right.
usually has a dome because it symbolizes two things. It symbolizes the sky, the heavens, and it draws your attention upwards.
Right,
It's almost like an endless feeling. But of course, just as with any other form of architecture, you would have variations. Not every church that would have a dome. And many churches are now also of a more modern design as well, and take in the differences, like for example in Singapore climate, how you lay it out, how you design the heights and such, make a difference as well. But I think architecture, just as in the secular world, in the religious sphere, helps us to focus on why we are here, that it's not about us, but it's about the divine.
Very nice.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's
learned a lot
head over to the next venue.
Wonderful. And I see you have a space here as well.
So this is what we call the youth space.
Okay.
This is where the youth, before COVID, right now we put it, as one of the restricted area. So this is where the youth would come and sometimes finish their homework over here. And as you can see, it is a bit youthful. There's a vending machine over there, and some words of encouragement and a bookshelf. And we have also had instances where certain students from the neighboring schools would even, come with their friends who are not Muslims to study together. So of course, we welcome them with open hand and free Wi-Fi. Where else to be? Yeah.
After you advertise that, there will be many people coming. But it's a good example that religious space is not just serving a singular purpose, but bringing community together as well.
That's right. Right. So we'll now head over to level 5 to take a look at the Yusuf Ishaq Gallery. Okay.
Hello again.
Okay, please come in, Mayor.
Thank you.
So we are right now at the 5th floor. We are going to see the Yusuf Ishaq Gallery in the auditorium.
Wonderful.
So I would like you to meet Mr. Khalid,
my
Haji
old friend.
Khalid.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Wonderful
So
to be
Mr.
here.
Khalid later on will be sharing on the ethos of Mr. Yusuf Ishaq. And yes, Mr. Khalid, please.
Thank you for having us.
Welcome once again.
Yeah.
This is the auditorium of the Masjid Yusuf Ishaq, and inside this auditorium you can see a heritage wall gallery. I'd like to show you.
Thank you.
First of all, this is the painting. Original painting was done by Mr. Chua Miyake, an artist. This painting was in Parliament House, but we obtained a permission for it to be painted again or reproduced, and this is to show as a start of how Masjid Yusuf Ishaq got its name, in memory of our statesman, our president, first president, Mr. Yusuf Ishaq.
Wonderful.
Of course, while he was the president, he had touched a lot of hearts, people, as well as many others, whether they are young and old, whether they are also in need, and even in organizations that come from different aspects, in business, from schools and so on. But one of the things that I'd like to show with you is regarding his visit to other organizations and religious institutions, like temples. He also invited Christians, leaders and youth at the Istana. You can see here the visitors that come, ranging from Buddhist monks, as well as many others from different organizations and religious organizations. So he's very fond of the community, very close to the people's heart. Okay. And also he visited and helped those in need in hospitals. And he was a very strong promoter for education and religion, and also knowledge. That he was also being given the Chancellor as the Doctors of Letters, as well as the Chancellor of the University of Singapore. And he promoted widely in terms of education for people and the public to learn, because as a young nation, he wants them to be educated, getting more knowledge, and strive to work hard, yeah, and develop
Values
the
that are
nation.
still
together.
important today.
Yes, they are. So back then there are rural areas in Singapore, in Nee Soon, for example, in places like Mandai, which is quite close by, and he helped to encourage them to go for studies in schools, and even made time to went over and see how it was conducted. Yeah. He also promoted many other education programs and activities for school and their students, and was very fond of them. Bearing in mind that he was a RI student before, so he's a well-rounded person.
Yeah.
He's also a journalist and is fond of many things and many sports as well.
Yeah. Remember, he was very interested in sports and active in that.
So likewise, as a Muslim, he has conducted himself very well as a family member, and he was a devoted family man. So he went for Hajj. He also attended religious obligation in mosques, and he opened several of the mosques here in Singapore, including the Malabar Mosque. So as a family man, Victoria. So the flow is that as a family man, he has a big family, also with the wife from Malaysia, and the rest of them, the children, are still here with us in Singapore. And during the opening of the mosque in 2017, on 14 April, we had also had a visit by our PM, who opened the mosque here with the family members. And then we put it up for them to see in the photo. Okay, so all in all, I think he had done well as a statesman. He had carried out his duty well, and these are the strong foundation of multicultural, multiracialism that we see today. And how do we open our minds and our hearts with others and strive to work out as a nation?
Yeah, wonderful. It's great to see that we have a building that represents his values and also his faith and religion. And I think it's a testament to the impact he's made to Singapore and Singapore.
I agree.
Indeed.
Thank you so much, Haji Khalid, for the sharing session. Sorry to disturb you, but I would like to invite both of you to our next session, which is the Q&A session. Come, please.
Thank you.
Have a seat.
Thank you, please. Thank you.
2 and 3. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah. Ladies and gentlemen, the Masjid of Isa is now officially open.
That's the photo. Listening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for staying on. I know it's a wonderful evening where we are supposed to be out with our families. People like me waiting for football to start in another 2.5 hours. But we all like to thank our host from Masjid Yusof Ishaq for their great hospitality. Thank you, Mayor, for being around. And right now, we have a panel to answer your question. They call it a question and answer session. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Nasim. I'm from OPSG. It's called onepeople.sg. We are a racial harmony advocacy group. We are here to bring about greater understanding and build trust between organizations and among Singaporeans. And I'm so proud to be here in the midst of all this particular pandemic where we never say die. Whether we can't be here physically, we are here in Zoom and Facebook Live. So I'd like to thank all those folks behind the screens. We cannot see you, but we can feel you. All those folks who come from the temples, churches, and also mosques. So without further ado, can we just start off the Q&A?
Sure.
All right, so I thought first we'll do a level 101 question, which is called basic. So a lot of people did ask me, non-Muslims, about what is madrasah, what is masjid, what is ustad, what is haji, and what is imam. Wow, 5 things, huh? It's okay. Today there's no quiz, but if you can take these 5 things, that's called level 101. So I thought, Ustad Fatah, I think you're the best person to answer here in this panel.
Okay,
Then carry on. Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nasim, for the question. Oh, I'm the first one. I thought Mayor should be the first one. Okay.
Mayor will get the last one,
Oh,
the most
okay.
difficult questions. Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'll share whatever the questions that Mr. Nasim shared. So these are basically the Islamic terms that maybe as a first timer coming to the mosque, you would like to know better, so that when a tour, he will explain, then we should know. So the first thing that Mr. Nasim mentioned, as I remembered, is the madrasah. So madrasah is literally means it's a school. It's an madrasah in Arabic. It's an Islamic school, or the school that teaches something religious. So that is what is called madrasah. If we're going to call it schools, normal translation, you will call it school. But madrasah is a term in Arabic that we call it for a religious madrasah. The second one is the imam. Right? Imam.
The second one is masjid.
Masjid.
The place,
Okay, so as the name itself, Masjid Yusof Ishaq. So masjid is the literal meaning of a place to prostrate. Yeah. So when a Muslim, when he prostrate, sujud, we call it, that is a place for us to do the prayer. So when one entering the mosque, we call the masjid, means that when one enter, want to perform the prayer itself now. So that is a masjid. It's called Masjid Yusof Ishaq. And the next one is the imam. Yes, correct. The imam is someone who actually is leading the prayer. So for example, during Friday prayer, he was leading. He's going to lead the prayer. In delivering the sermon, we call it imam, as he is the one who is leading the prayer. That's imam. And the next one will be hajj. No, Mr. Nasim? Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Hajj is the man.
Haji.
Correct. Haji. Oh, haji. There's two way of using haji. So one is the haji is the pilgrimage, and the other one is a call. It's like a auntie, uncle, but in terms of haji. So haji, when my name is Fatah, for example, and you are calling me like Haji Fatah. It means like I have went to the pilgrimage. Yeah. So Mr. Khalid, for example, we call him Haji Khalid. So he actually have performed pilgrimage before. Means he went to the Makkah and do the pilgrimage. So that is why we call a person, a Muslim who have went to the pilgrimage, Haji. And also the Hajj the pilgrimage itself. Yeah. And the last one is Ustaz. So I heard Mr. Nasim call me Ustaz Fatah. So Ustaz is someone who is actually have the knowledge or the authority to teach Islamic studies specifically. So when you say Ustaz, but the term Ustaz, if you were to Google, is actually being used quite widely as well, because an Ustaz is a specific person who actually mastered or have the expertise to explain on certain things. For example, if someone were to be an expert of engineering, we call him Ustaz of engineering. But in terms of Islamic terms, we call him as one as who knows Islam further, has more knowledge and authority to explain more about Islam. Yes.
Wonderful.
Hope that answers the question.
5 things.
So 5 things.
First 2 is the places, like madrasa, school, masjid,
Very good.
mosque, imam leads prayer, ustad is a teacher, and of course our haji sitting down there in the center leads and he leads the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And this leads to me to the question asked by Anne, Facebook Live. Thank you. Get your questions now in Facebook Live. And I'd like to thank Anne for your question. She's asking, a Muslim will need to perform the pilgrimage to Makkah at least once a lifetime. It's called the Hajj. What is Umrah? Interesting, huh? Anne is asking about Umrah. So Ustad, I think first 2-3 questions will be all about this.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Ustad will get pressure a bit. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. If you can see my I perspire. So yes, Haji is the once in a lifetime. If you can afford, actually, if you can afford, it is permissible as well. So you are being excused. But for Umrah, you can actually yearly people go for Umrah like 2 or 3 times. So why is this Umrah? So Umrah is actually a smaller version, of the Hajj. So it is an act of prayers as well. It is, but it is not basically not doing the acts that is being going to do during the Hajj, the pilgrimage. So it is a slightly different. It's like a road to pilgrimage. So you can practice yourself to do Umrah as many times as you want, because at the end of the day, the most important one is to do the pilgrimage. So again, I'll try to summarize in a short one. Pilgrimage is the main. The Umrah is the smaller road to Umrah, we call it AKA, as known as. So yes, thank you so much for the question.
Thank you. There is another question. I think Ustad, what is the difference between a masjid and a surah? Because I think many Singaporeans will hear this surah.
I see.
I know some of the army guys will say, let's go to the surah. So what's between masjid and surah?
Okay, so this is basically a term that is being used, particularly in Singapore, or maybe the whole world, I think, but it's mainly used at in Nusantara context, namely our neighboring country like Malaysia, Indonesia. We call this as a surau because it is a smaller version that can fit not many people, even like smaller than 100 packs that can fit them. So in our context, the smallest mosque, I think can fit like a few hundreds, but we still call it a masjid just to standardize the calling or the terms, the masjid. And yeah, that's why I think, like for example, I live in Choa Chu Kang, but I love to go to IMM, for example. IMM have a small surau that can fit like 2-3 person that actually allow Muslim to actually pray. So that is considered as a surau that can fit a small number of people. Yeah, for Singapore it's different. Maybe Haji Khalid wants to elaborate some more.
Yes.
I think Haji Khalid is me. Yeah, the reason why in Singapore we call it even the smallest.
Well, I think
mosque, we call it small.
good question by Mr. Nazim.
Yes.
If I may add,
Yes.
back in the old days, when we lived in rural kampong houses, they were already established and they already built smaller huts and smaller homes. And many of this has been given for the purpose of prayers as well as for doing the Islamic kind of obligations. That includes many other things that are needed. So one of the things that happened back then, smaller places of worship were built. There wasn't any main big mosque like what we have today. So therefore that smaller kind of accommodation or a mosque which is called surau was built to cater for that specific numbers of people who live in that rural area.
Wonderful. If I may jump in with a question, Ustaz Fatah mentioned just now Islam Nusantara. basically, I think that translates to Islam as is practiced in the archipelago.
Correct.
It's a term that we hear often. In fact, we mention it in Parliament a couple of times. How is that different from, say, Islam elsewhere? What is so unique about our practice of Islam Nusantara in Singapore and in the region?
So this to me?
Yes.
I thought it was Haji Khalid. Okay. So I'll try my best to answer. I'm not sure if I can answer it well. So if I can't answer it well, I go pass to Haji Khalid. Okay. So yeah, thank you so much, Maria, for the question. I think just briefly, I think what I'm sharing of what I know, because I think the uniqueness of Islam in the Malay, especially Malay archipelago, I think it's about the culture itself. Because when Islam enters the Nusantara, it was from Indonesia first, and then it comes down to Malaysia, and I think it started off where the trades started during the Malacca, that kind of time. So I think the uniqueness of it at that point of time, the scholars, Islamic scholars at that time, were trying to actually bring the culture from the Arabs. They were from Arabs. They are Arab traders. So when they tried to adapt, try to implement it to the locals, it didn't work. So they were thinking like, oh, how can I teach? How can I share these Islamic values without disturbing their cultures? So it's not, if thing goes wrong, I think I will be kicked out of the country. So they try to blend. So as long as it doesn't interrupt with the cause of the religion itself, I think that can be not bended. I think it can be adjusted and adapted. So at that point of time, the Islam at that point of time in Nusantara have actually adapted to the locals. So that's why we have the Malay wearing the kebaya. The kebaya is actually or maybe the scarf. Remember the old Malay movies? They have like this scarf just put over the head. So that is the simplest implementation of Islam at that point of time. Being implemented to the locals, so that at least they are doing something like an improvement from not wearing anything, for example, just to start to cover their head just for briefly like that. So that is the uniqueness of Islam in Nusantara that I could share with you for now. Thank you so much, Maria, for the question. I think that really opens up our mind as well.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay, folks, you also know that we also have participants over Zoom. So if you like to ask questions over Zoom, you may do so now. You can come on board, and we'd like to thank you. And those people who are on Facebook Live, continue to give in your questions. You have any questions from the Zoom? Okay, I think while we are waiting, I thought this is one interesting question, and we're going a bit deeper. And I like Vincent Chia's question. Good evening, Mayor and leaders of Mosque Yusof Ishak. Are there any similarities between Islam and Christianity with regards to the prophets? And I'm not going to arrow anyone. Who knows? We'll just say it.
Okay, me again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, it will also mean that there's also another question like, what is the core value of the Islamic and the Christian faith? So there's some similarities, and I like Vincent's question because one of the things that we would like to also see is the similarities, because we say we are the people of the book.
Yes.
I thought for today, the question is between Islam and Christianity.
Okay. So as much as Mr. Nasim said, it is a deeper question, but I do not want to go into a deep discussion on this. Yes. Let's touch on the surface. I think everybody, I'm not sure if everybody knows, I think most of us knows that Islam, Christianity, and also Judaism is actually under one banner of we call it Abrahamic religion. And as much as these religions are concerned, there is definitely about this, we call it the Baitul Muqaddis, Jerusalem, and we are all related. Jerusalem is considered as the center of the monotheism at that point of time, and still center of the monotheism. So being a monotheistic religion, I think definitely we have a lot of commonalities. So the specific question that Mr. Nasim asked was, what is the similarities or commonalities that Islam and Christianity have? Definitely we are sharing a lot of prophets. I mean, if not all, because from Judaism, actually from Moses, actually brought down to Jesus, we Muslim believe that this is according to Muslim faith. from Muslim passed down to Jesus. Jesus is not bringing a new religion; he's bringing Mosaic religion. And then from religion, even the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that he does not bring any new religion. He's teaching. And one ayah mentioned that he is actually completing the religion of Moses and Jesus, and now it is up to him on his shoulder that he is trying to complete the religion as one. So in terms of similarities, that is, we are actually sharing the same prophets. We are actually most likely sharing the same what do you call that? In terms of not faith, but definitely the how to say it?
Believe in one God.
Yeah, believe in terms of believing in one God. So that we share that kind of similarity due to the lineage of the history that we shared together. Hopefully that answers.
Thank you. So actually, this question requires about 1 hour to answer. We are making it very short and sharp.
Yeah.
And I like to thank all the questions, and I think all the questions have been talking about religion. So I thought I just moving for a while to talk about the mosque. So I have the chairman of the mosque here. You know, when COVID-19 struck Singapore, many of the religious institutions were quite affected. Maybe would you like to share with the audience that how masjids or mosques were affected, and how mosque leaders you had to adjust, and you know, just now we saw the prayers, we saw them 1 meter apart. So maybe you want to explain more about the kind of things that we had to adjust in this particular pandemic period.
Thank you, Mr. Nazim.
And I think I will start smiling. Don't worry. Yes.
Well, back then, I think almost a year, that we were faced with the unprecedented situation that comes and landed on our shore, and many of us were not prepared about that. So it took a while for us to understand, and I thought that the authorities, the government, the agencies, as well as the religious organization stepped forward to discuss that and look into what are the aspects that we need to keep our community safe, as well as to continue with our daily lives. But at that point of time, there were the increase in terms of casualties, as well as those who were inflicted with the COVID illnesses. So what happened back then was the authorities had worked together with MCCY, with the Ministry of Health, and the religious organizations about how can we look at ways of not closing the mosque or the institution, the religious institution, but yet putting into places safety measures that we can control. That includes checking with our temperature, continuing with our daily life, and then we will also conducted our prayers little by little, opening up in terms of the numbers, and then we look at what is the safety distancing that we look at, as well as what other aspect of religious needs and items, for example, because we prayed, and like my colleague mentioned just now about prostrating and putting your forehead onto the carpet and on the ground. We need special rug, or when bring along our own rug. So that was one of the examples that we took. But over and above, what is important for us to be responsible, for ourselves, and we take note and care for our family members. And during that early period, Mr. Nazim, what we did was we prayed mostly at home. So the increase in terms of opening up, and because of the CB, which is implemented earlier until now, phase 3, we are actually quite heartened to note that things are getting better, loosening up, and we can see also the numbers have been going down. So that's a positive sign.
Indeed.
Great. And personally speaking, because I go for Friday prayers, now I have 3 time slots to choose. So you have the 12:45, 12:45. Then we have the 2:45. So I go for the 2:45 slot. And I'll be very candid with you, Mayor. It is a great adjustment for me, because every time whether in army days or working days, we are all at the mosque before 1. And I know, most working places in Singapore, all the Malay Muslim folks, they will have to report to work by 2:30. But now suddenly we have this different time slot, right? So there's an adjustment taking place. I'm very, very glad by some of the great questions that are coming. But before I go to the Facebook Live questions, I want to go to Ronnie's question. Ronnie, so hang in there. Is there any question from the Zoom participants out there? If you are, you can come on in the next 5 seconds. Okay. Keep coming. If you think, just interrupt me and I'll look out for you. As you know, this is all part and parcel. We are doing live audience, right? I don't see people here. I only see one screen. But Ronnie, you are a very observant person. So this is a question. In some hotels, I see arrow in the room with the word Qiblat written on it. You are very observant. Not only Singapore hotel, overseas hotels also. May I know what it means, please?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Ustaz very happy.
Okay,
Yes.
Easy question.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so much, Ronnie. That's a good question. I think not in Singapore we couldn't find that as much as when we went to Malaysia, definitely. And that Qiblat sign is actually the Qibla is derived from Arabic words Qibla. It's actually a transliteration of an Arabic word Qibla, and that Qibla actually means direction. It's a direction to which places. It's actually the direction to Mecca. So whenever a Muslim pray, we need to face the Qibla, which is now is the Mecca. It's the Kaaba. Sorry, the Kaaba in Mecca. Yeah. So wherever you are as a Muslim, we regardless of any place, we need to pray. Even in hotels, no holiday for us. Even if we are relaxing, hotel, spa, for example. So back in the room, we need to perform our prayers, and that is the reason why, just to indicate where we facing. So currently we also have applications now available at in our phones. So sometimes if a hotel room that doesn't have the direction sign, we could refer to the phone app that we are using regardless. Now a lot of apps showing the direction. Yeah.
By the way, if you have army guys who are Muslims and who are praying in the open, like me when I was much younger, 18 years old, right? See, we want to know where's the direction. If it's a daytime, look at where the sun sets. If the sun sets at the west, there's a good direction. Nighttime, sorry, God is forgiving. You can pray the direction you think it is the west. Okay, I have a question in Zoom by Mr. Ray Gunn. Are you okay to come on Zoom to ask your question, please?
Yes.
Gunn, yes.
Can you hear me?
Please carry on with the question.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Very good to see you.
Yeah, slightly louder, please. Yeah.
And also to all the religious leaders
Okay.
in
I tell you what,
Masjid.
you state the question and then we will find a way to get. You just state the question first. Yes.
Okay,
Nazim,
I have
can
two
add
questions.
The earlier question.
Yes.
First question is, why are only the men allowed to pray in the mosque? And the posture, why do they have to kneel and prostrate themselves?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, your question is for prayer in the mosque, why you need to kneel and prostrate, correct? Right?
Then-
And also, why only men are allowed? Because in the
Other than
church,
Salat.
we allow men and women to pray together.
I see. Did you hear the question, Ustad? Okay. Is there anyone here who can also to echo? Don't worry, technology has its challenges, but we will get
Yes.
through this. Can we get someone to say the question again, please? Ref, just hang on, don't worry. Yeah. Okay, why only men allowed to pray? Is it correct? Correct. Okay. We go in installment. Okay. First question. First question. According to Rev, he says only men allowed to pray in the mosque. You mean? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Because Rev says that. So please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rev. I think to answer your question, I would like to elaborate more. There's actually two types of prayers. For example, daily prayers, the one that we are doing 5 times a day, and there's also a weekly prayer. We call it the Friday prayer, where we have sermon in the Friday prayer. So
Okay.
in terms of daily prayers, there's no restriction of any male or female to come and pray, because we actually have allocated to accommodate the female congregants as well as the male congregants. And right now, level 2, for example, the whole level 2 will be allocated or accommodated by our male congregants, and the other level will be filled with our female congregants. But only for the Friday prayers, because it is obligatory prayer for the males. So it is non-obligatory for the females. So since we only have 70 mosques in Singapore, so in order to accommodate the obligation, so we are not encouraging for the women to come and pray to accommodate the males. Yeah, so because currently the mosque, this mosque particularly, for example, we can we can accommodate to 4,500 congregants. But during Friday prayers, surprisingly, or Eid prayers, Hari Raya prayers, it can jump up to 7,000. So where are these another 2,500 where are going to pray? So we actually allocated for the female prayer, for the female level. Also, we give out to our male congregants so that we have more space, because that is an obligation for Friday prayer, obligation for the male to perform, but non-obligatory for the female. Yeah, that's the first question.
The second question, yes. Yeah. So the second question is why they need to prostrate, kneel during the prayers, and that is actually a way of doing it.
Okay. So in terms of salat or prayers, that is actually part of the actions that we need to do. For example, prostrate and kneeling. I think I don't want to go back to the history, but just for the Muslim aspects, there's actually a set of actions that we need to do in a prayer. So kneeling and prostrating is part of it, and it has to be done in a number of times. That, for example, 3 times or 4 times. We have 4 times maximum. So that needs to be repeated. It's a repetition of actions that is already ordained of obligatory actions that a Muslim needs to do whenever they are doing the prayers. Yeah, I think just to add on just now, I think the cut scenes are actually showing of the set of actions that we Muslims should do. I think someone could share them. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mayor, your question is coming up, so hang on after this, okay? Okay. So this question, okay, but before that, I just have to say that, yes, some of these questions that you are asking is what a typical Singaporean will every day come across, talking about why they pray this way and so on. So let me just tell you that my mother, she did not go to mosque all her life until she was about 50 years old, because traditionally women prayed at home. So when Friday prayers, there are mosques that open up, but because, as what Ustad said, space constraint, we give priority for obligatory prayers. That means all men have to go to mosque on Friday. So Rev, I know in Singapore you don't see many, in those days many women did not go, but now we can see them going. But now with COVID-19, yeah, you see fewer, but we hope that after the pandemic, yes, women are allowed to pray in mosque so long as we have the space and it's also suitable for them as well, because they have to also take ablution and so on. So next question is actually coming from Anne, and this is about Hari Raya Haji question. But anyway, the one that's coming up is Hari Raya Puasa. So the Hari Raya Haji, the sacrifice of lamb or sheep is used, and the meat, mutton, is given to the poor. She used the word, is goat or kambing used? I suppose there is a sheep, goat, sheep used. Any difference? So again, Haji Khalid, you also can do, because you also are a kambing expert.
Yes. Let them start.
Yeah, we start. Yes.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of what to slaughter during Hari Raya Haji is actually up. The differences between goat, sheep, or kambing. Kambing is a translation.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter as long as it is a livestock lah. Yeah. For example, the only difference that I see is the prices. So it depends on where we imported it from. So in terms of slaughtering, I don't think the portion is another factor to add on. Some may slaughter the cow, a cow. If you have a lot of, if you have extra income, or for example like that, you might want to slaughter cow lah, for example, so that you can give up to many more people. You can share it to many more people. And apart from that, I think no other difference except for the price. If that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I was joking with Haji Khalid just now about this because in Singapore, people like me and Haji Khalid, we also involved in this thing called the Kurban, where goats are imported to Singapore and then we look after them, and it's a very big, elaborate process. And city dwellers like me, first time seeing a goat is a very big experience. So that is another story, another time. But I hope the question is answered. So, Mayor, thank you for being patient all this while. I know all the questions of fire and two people. The man on the red with a nice baju kurung has been very patient. Thank you. So, you have two questions. Okay. First question is, Mayor, is this your first visit to the mosque? That's the first question. Second question is, how can CDC bring about different faiths together, and what is the CDC's idea of bringing upon greater understanding and trust among the different races in Singapore?
I hope all of you have an hour left. I will have to make a very long exposition. No, but the question on whether this is my first visit, it's my first visit to this mosque. It's not my first visit to a mosque. In fact, with Haji Khalid, he's a very experienced administrator. I've met him at many other mosques previously, where he was executive chairman, and so we have a trend and a friendship. Everywhere he goes, I must go and visit also. So I'm very happy to be here, to be with old friends, and to see this marvelous dedication of the volunteers here, the staff here, as well as a mosque that's also dedicated to such a statesman in Singapore, Encik Yusof Ishak, our first president. To see the architecture, to see the community coming together, I think it's a great testament to the efforts of our Malay Muslim community in Singapore and raising funds to build this beautiful place of worship. Before I come to the difficult question of what the CDC can do, I thought I'd share a little bit in relation to some of the questions that were asked earlier. My background, my faith tradition is an Abrahamic one. I'm a Roman Catholic by religious profession, and there are many similarities between our faith traditions, both Islam, Christianity, and of course Judaism. For me, at this moment, we are amidst a period of 40 days that we call Lent, which is very similar to Ramadan. It is our fasting period, mirroring 40 days that Jesus, Prophet Isa, spent in the desert, in the wilderness. It's 40 days of prayer, of dedication, of understanding God's presence in our life. And so we fast slightly differently. We don't avoid food completely, but we take self-sacrificial actions. For example, we do one full meal and two small meals, or some of us may take the entire day's fast, or we give up something. For example, technology, we give up watching a movie, we give up anything that would take away enjoyment. So that's also at one level of practice that we have some similarities in terms of our prophets, in terms of our holy books. There's a lot of similarity as well. Earlier this morning, I had a number of award ceremony with the CDC for our outstanding all-rounder students. And I shared with them a story which I adapted about a hummingbird. And since we mentioned the topic of the Prophet Abraham and the Korban. there was this parable that I always remembered from many years ago that was shared with me, that when Abraham was in his discourse with Nimrod, the king of Babylon, and this juxtaposition between good and evil that they represented. And Nimrod was so angry that he decided to cast Abraham into the fire. And this little bird that flew by saw Abraham, great prophet of God, in the fire, and decided to pick up water to try to douse the fire. So this parable was told. And then a crow flew by and laughed at the hummingbird and said, "There's nothing you can do. The water that you pour would make absolutely no difference." But when I heard the conclusion of this parable, I thought it was so powerful a message, because the hummingbird's reply to the crow is at the day of reckoning, when God asks, "What did I do?" I can say, "I tried." And of course, God in his greatness protected Abraham, and he survived the fire. In fact, converted so many to the faith, because here they saw a God who protected his prophet over the temporal power of the king of Babylon. And I shared a variation of this story with the students, because I think for all of us, whether we are people of faith or we live in a secular world, every single action that we do, even although it may seem meaningless or fruitless, can make such a big difference, because it changes people. And for us as people of faith, at the end of the day, it's also how we answer at our reckoning. We appear before the Almighty. Do we say we gave up because we were powerless, or do we say we tried? And that brings me in a strange way to the question that you asked about the role of the CDC in promoting greater dialogue and harmony. The CDC's role is to bring people together, right? Regardless of race, language, or religion. But we also start off from the basis of comfort, right? Where we can start a conversation out of curiosity. Do we learn from that process? So when we visited Covenant Evangelical Church for our first session, and now here at Masjid Yusuf Ishak, we are in that process of learning from each other and gaining from the presence of each other. Even if there are so many more questions to be answered, there's so much more to learn. I think the fact that we can be in the same space, despite differences in race, language, or in this particular case, religion, we can find commonality. And that's why when we had the discussion amongst our colleagues in the CDC, I said this was one area we should still focus on, because it starts a conversation. Just like the little hummingbird, people may look at us and say, you're just talking amongst yourself. It will make no difference whatsoever. The world will still be traumatic. There will still be divisions. True. But we must try. We must try. And the fact that we have so many of our representatives from religious organizations, we have our residents joining us, wanting to learn more, even though it might not be the whole of Singapore, it is a conversation starter, and we can carry on from there. There is a question from Zoom. Perhaps we can invite that question.
Are there similarities with regards to baptism and ablution?
Now, it will require an interreligious answer. I would say that from the basis of baptism, which is a Christian tradition, baptism is not the same as ablution. I will come to what is similar. Baptism is the point by which, in our faith tradition, we become part of the Christian community. It is the sign of our outward sign of our purification. So when we were born, we are sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, and because of their disobedience to God, and therefore they were cast out of paradise, and therefore they carry with them what in our tradition we call the original sin. And so the act of washing, the act of baptism, is our way of outwardly saying, I give up my life of sin and commit myself to live a life of holiness. So that is baptism. My understanding of ablution is similar in a way that it's cleansing, but different starting point. But before I invite Ustaz and Haji Khalid to speak a little bit more about ablution, there is for us as Catholics, as Roman Catholics, something similar to ablution, and that is a sacramental that we call holy water. You see this in the movies a lot. Whenever a vampire appears, people throw water. Doesn't work like that. But we have a sacramental that we call holy water. It's a reminder of the act of baptism.
Yeah.
So every time we step into a church, a Catholic church, you will find what we call a font or a baptismal, not a baptismal, a receptacle that holds some water that has been blessed. And we use that water to bless ourselves with the sign of the cross, to remind ourselves of the commitment that we made at baptism, to lead a holy life. So that perhaps is where the similarity lies. It's not as many steps as Islamic ablution when you come to the mosque, but that's where there are some similarities. Perhaps invite Ustaz or Haji.
So a continuation of what Meya has mentioned. I think the similarities, yes. If a Muslim were to make an ablution, is particularly or specifically when it is going to perform the prayer. There are two things that actually needs ablution in the Muslim tradition. Before performing the prayers and also before we are reading the Quran. It is the rest. For example, first is performing prayer. You take ablution for when you are reading the Quran. While the rest, it is encouraged to take an ablution in whatever goodness that you want to do. For example, you want to start your work. For example, I think it's best for me to take ablution, for example. So it is a form like, for example, to remind us, just like similar, like what Mayor had said, to remind us of we are in a state of purity, for example. That's a different set of cleansing lah. So we take ablution in order for us to remain in a state of purity, but specifically for the prayers, yes, it is needed for us to make ablutions or take ablutions. If not, our prayers will be invalid. So it is a form of a validation for us, for us Muslims, to perform the prayers. Yeah.
Ustaz, so baptism and ablution, that most people know they use water, but can you also explain to us the circumstances where ablution we don't use water? There are times.
Oh yes, correct. So yeah, for instances, for example, if one were to diagnose, for example, this in terms of medical perspective, for example, one skin cannot touch, or maybe we are meeting with an accident, for example, for example, so somehow our skin cannot touch water lah, for example, like that, in a simpler way I'm saying. So in that kind of cases, we are actually excused by taking ablution with water. But what we can do is that we can take ablution with what do you call that, sand, for example. There's a form of ablution that doesn't require water, but with sand instead.
Sand and dust particles.
Dust particles as well. Yeah, that is just to answer that question.
Thank you, Ustad. You know why? Because we are so used to in Singapore talking about ablution with water, and of course the mosque is always talking about saving water. We have all kinds of methods, right?
Yes.
But in the deserts, sometimes water is scarce. We use also sand to do ablution. That's a very interesting story. Remember this question and answer session, if it leads you to go and find out more, please do. And that's the intent. I think we have enough time for 2 questions. Okay, one question is coming from Zoom. Another question is from Freddie. Freddie, thank you for hanging on there. I know you are there. I'm going to ask a question, but I thought we'll start from the Zoom question. And maybe, gentlemen, you have to speak a bit louder so that we can hear. Carry on. The question from Zoom, yes. Yes.
Hello, my name is Irfan, and I would like to ask about what is the concept of prayer between Islam and Christianity. Thank you.
Yes, carry on with the question.
May I know what is the concept of prayer between Islam and Christianity? Thank you.
Yeah, can somebody echo the question, please? Okay, the concept of prayer. Is your question, sir, what is the concept of prayer in Islam and in Christianity? Is that correct? Thank you. Thanks. Sorry, you see, we are still using old Stone Age method of sign language, but thank you. All right. Mayor, never say die. So, okay. So what we'll do is, Mayor, you want to go first?
Okay,
Yes.
I shall attempt this. I
Yes.
cannot claim to
Yes.
be a religious expert. In terms of prayer in the Christian context, there are many forms of prayer. There is what we call fixed form, which follows a formula. There are set prayers that we do. For example, the Lord's Prayer is the most basic of prayer that Christians learn. It is in the words that Jesus taught his followers. So that's a fixed form of prayer. There is also, at the other end of the spectrum, expressive prayer. It can be through song, it can be through silence, it can be through art, it can be through simply breathing and focusing on the presence of God. So prayer is very wide-ranging for Christianity, because in Christianity we have not just one tradition but multiple traditions. You have Catholics, you have the Orthodox, you have Protestants, Anglicans, Methodists, and so forth, and each has a tradition of prayer. I give you one example that perhaps wouldn't strike you as prayer. What perhaps between Catholics and Muslims is we have tools of prayer. For example, the rosary. It's a form by which we use to count prayers, count the number of prayers that we have recited. But there is another form of prayer in Christianity that people sometimes don't associate with the act of prayer. And that's what we call walking a maze. In some monasteries, in some convents, you would find a maze in the garden. It's a very low maze, it's carved, it's a pathway, and the act of focusing, of being silent, of walking, of praying, of being there in the presence and glory of God is one way as well. In fact, every act of being can sometimes be an act of prayer. Breathing, meditation, walking, being in the presence, and focusing on God's role in your life and His indwelling in you. All those for us can be forms of prayer. So it's perhaps make you a little bit more confused, but the diversity of forms is what makes us unique as well, and it encompasses all realities. So some may prefer a repetitive form of prayer, so the chants, the rosary, set formulas. The act of going to church, attending Mass is a prayer as well. The act of breathing is a prayer as well. So really it encompasses all sides. So that's from the Christian understanding of prayer. Perhaps I invite
Yeah.
Haji Khalid.
Well,
or
thank you very
Ustaz.
much.
Okay,
Mayor.
so Ustaz, maybe we just want to say briefly about prayer in Islam.
Yeah, I think when we are saying about prayer, I think apart from the prayer that we are doing the 5 times, we also have these prayers. I mean, in terms of prostrating, the set of the set of acts that we should do in terms of prayers. We also have, we call it the supplication. So the supplication that whenever it is when we are outside prayers and we want to remind ourselves from God to God. I mean, like we are there are certain verses in the Quran that being taken out and then not taken out like that. I mean, like being recited as a supplication, so that we are being reminded of our Creator, for example, like that. So that one we call it supplication. Yeah. But from prayers is the
Yes. So actually, we asked me, we are all in the same boat because see before
Correct.
exams, we also utter prayer.
Yeah.
Sometimes we say
Yes.
zikir.
Mhm.
We also have Thursday night prayers and so on. So, okay, now we have to wrap up. But I know I promised Freddie. Freddie, your question is, what is the percentage of the zakat? That what are the 8 categories of people given to now? Actually, if you ask me, the right answer is you go to www.luis.gov.sg, got all the details. But I thought the concept of zakat is something that can briefly say, you know why? I'm being told that you have actually exceeded time, but because Freddie has been very patiently waiting there, so we'll start just about zakat or Haji Khalid.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so for zakat is one of the 5 pillars of Islam that one should do. So as a working adult, if you have an income, a set of income that you have been keeping or savings, for example, there's a portion of your wealth that you have to contribute back. So in simpler words, your wealth that you are having right now, you own right now, is not totally yours. For example, as a Muslim, so we believe that. So a portion of that, which is the amount, like the questions is how many percentage. So it's 2.5% of the total wealth that you have been keeping around 1 year. So there's a period of it. So for example, if this year you have, in the simpler way, for example, I have like 10,000 this year. So next year, if I've been keeping that 10,000, so the amount that you have to contribute is 2.5% out of that 10,000. So, but I don't want to go into much details. Yes, just like Mr. Nasim said, you can go to the website to know more. And then the reason why it is obligatory is that, for example, this is a form of us to contribute back to the community, and it is made obligatory in Islam, so that our effort of contributing towards our Muslim brothers community, or Muslim community in general, is being taken care of. So even if one were to pass away, for example, and then he's leaving a lot of, no one is claiming no highest, or for example, that amount of wealth will be donated to the, we call it Baitul Mal. Baitul Mal is where the wealth will be distributed evenly to the one who is needing the most. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. But I thought at this point in time, I thought we will have parting shots from the chairman of the mosque. Of course, Mayor will always have the last say as well. So, Haji, maybe you want to say a few words.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for those at home watching us through a virtual Zoom. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody, and I'd like to also to congratulate the Mayor for this effort, because this is a good step forward where we understand better, and for many other organizations out there who can work with us to understand us a little bit more. Just a little bit about the importance of understanding of the religion. Perhaps I can just say a few words that Islam means peace, and peace is something that we treasure, and that we do not act violence against one another. And at the same time, it goes back to a long history of more than 1,400 years, and prayers, reading of the Quran, as well as the location of sacred places like the Grand Mosque in Mecca, the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, as well as important mosques in Jerusalem. They are tied together with historical evidence as well, with the religions are Abrahamic, and that is also something that we also treasure there. And these conversations help us to understand one another,
Yes.
foster friendship and bonding, as well as to create longer and more conversation in future, so that it doesn't stop here. We can still have exchanges and dialogues, and I think this is a good start for us to look into, and I think I appreciate the efforts done by Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Thank
your
you.
closing remarks.
I know it's getting late in the day. There's soccer coming up, and there's a lot of family obligations as well. But first off, I really like to thank our friends from Masjid Yusuf Ishak, our chairman, Haji Khalid, Ustaz Fatah, and many other of our friends here who have hosted us today. You rightly mentioned that those friendships are very important and very precious. Our religions, whatever our faith tradition, we start off from the basis of you must be good and your good must benefit others. And the Abrahamic religions are, after all, religions of peace at the end of the day. As you mentioned, Islam means peace. For us as Christian, Jesus, we refer to him by his title of the Prince of Peace, because he brings peace to the world. And so here we are, promoting peace in a very peaceful country, but it's ever more important when we are at peace to ensure that it continues to be strong, it continues to uphold, and our relationship continues to grow. Because when we have no troubles, that is when we become complacent, and that is when troubles can begin. Today, in the rest of the world, we see so much that has happened. In Singapore, we've been very blessed that we have been able to have harmony with one another. Pope Francis is in Iraq this weekend as a pilgrim for peace. And for all of us, we too are on a pilgrimage of peace with each other. And hopefully this relationship will carry on. And so I thank all our audience for joining us, for your very insightful questions, for your sharings as well, and our religious partners on Zoom for partnering with us as we journey ahead. And of course, to our good friends from OPSG who have been journeying with us, and in fact, we can regard them as the grandfather of the movement together with the IRO. So thank you all once again. I wish you good health, peace, and the very best for the year ahead. Thank you very much. May we meet each other physically sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.